Get that thing out of here. Useless. Man, that voice was like glass shattering the morning air in a packed O'Hare International Airport in Chicago. I was just mindin' my own business, waiting in line at gate 42B for my 10:30 a.m. flight, when this woman in a wheelchair right in front of me just kinda froze up. The voice belonged to a white flight attendant with bright red lipstick. I could barely make out the name on her badge. It said Tracy. She had this deep scowl between her eyebrows, staring down the woman in the chair. Folks like you mess up the whole darn schedule, she practically spat. Everyone around us kinda looked away quick. Nobody, and I mean nobody, stepped in. Just a cold, thick silence hung over the whole terminal. Eleanor didn't say squat. The thin fingers resting on the armrest of her chair were shaking just a little bit. Even sitting there, she kept her back ramrod straight. That seat's for VIPs, Tracy sneered. Doesn't apply to people with disabilities, does it? This ain't your place. Her words were like a physical slap, making Eleanor's ears ring. She slowly lowered her eyes, the shadow of her lashes casting a faint line on her pale skin. Her breathing was slow and steady, like the tide. But underneath that quiet exterior, you knew there was some razor-sharp emotion brewing. The cold air conditioning draft swept around her feet. The faint smell of Starbucks coffee hung in the air, mixed with the babble of foreign languages and the announcements for flights to Dallas and New York. But just around Eleanor, it was unnaturally quiet. Tracy's face was pure fury and frustration. She was looking at Eleanor not like a person, but like a damn obstacle. If we're delayed, it's gonna be all on you, she warned. Right on cue, some dude behind Tracy started getting antsy. Come on, hurry it up. What in the heck is this service? All the eyes in the area were now drilling into Eleanor's back. Heavy, cold stares that went right through her skin and settled deep in her gut. Even so, Eleanor didn't say a word. She just curled the corners of her lips slightly. It wasn't a real smile. It was a mask, designed to make people think she wasn't feeling a thing. Inside, though, it was a raging inferno, anger, grief, shame, deep regret, and just plain hurt. But she kept it all bottled up. She wasn't about to lose her temper. Miss Eleanor? A polite voice came from a distance. A woman in a black business suit hurried over, pulling a Louis Vuitton suitcase behind her. Seeing that, Tracy got even angrier. She stepped closer. Oh, you had an assistant? Should have said so from the get-go. That's when it hit. A weird announcement blared through the entire airport speaker system. Attention, attention. Emergency announcement. All departing flights are temporarily grounded. We will provide more information shortly. Huh? Tracy took a step back. The surrounding passengers exchanged worried looks and started buzzing. In the chaos, the assistant leaned in close to Eleanor's ear and whispered something. Eleanor slowly opened her eyes. And then, she stood up from the wheelchair. The crowd gasped. Who, she said, her quiet voice slicing through the noise, is actually suitable for that seat? It wasn't a yell or a grudge. Just words that quietly ripped through the air. For the first time, everyone froze, realizing they had absolutely no idea who she was. But the whole story wasn't out yet. Her one line changed the whole atmosphere, even if nobody truly understood it yet. Eleanor, now standing, was completely calm and totally composed. But I bet some folks felt uncomfortable. It was like they were watching something from another world. Tracy stood there with her mouth hanging open. Huh? You can walk? At that, a few sharp eyes turned toward Tracy. But Tracy herself was still clueless about just how much she was being scrutinized. Eleanor didn't answer. Instead, she offered a small, knowing smirk. You won't believe the scene at the terminal. I'm talking about the main gate at Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport, right around 2014. I was just trying to catch my flight, American Global Airlines Flight 403 to Los Angeles, and that's when things got weird. I saw this woman, Eleanor, and her eyes were something else. They weren't flashing with anger, not even a speck of hatred. It was pure, stone-cold resolve. She was breathing slow and deep, like she'd been expecting this moment since she was a kid. She just stood there, silently taking in the whole place, the leather suitcases, the carry-ons dragging past her feet, the big overhead flight board glitching out with a flashing red alert, system down. All around her, the passengers started buzzing. What's going on? Equipment failure? Why can't they fix it? They were a mess of frustration and worry. But the few of us close to her? We started to feel a different kind of tension. I heard someone whisper, "Hold up, is it just me, or does she look different?" Like she wasn't just another delayed traveler. Then there was this other woman, Brittany. She wasn't hiding her panic. She bit her lip and gripped her arms, glaring down at Eleanor. "Who the hell are you?" she practically hissed. The answer didn't come from Eleanor or her aide. A middle-aged guy, standing by himself, quietly stepped forward. Through his thin glasses, his eyes were sharp as tacks. "You really don't know?" he asked Brittany. "You don't know her name?" Brittany froze for a second. "What are you talking about?" The guy held up his cell phone. It was open to the airport's website, and right there, front and center, under the title "A Message from the Chairman," was a picture of Eleanor. "No way." "You're lying," Brittany gasped, all the color draining out of her face. "She is the chairman of this airline, ma'am," the man stated simply. The whole gate held its breath. "The chairman? The C-suite guy?" "This is a nightmare," someone muttered. Eleanor just took a slow, deliberate breath. She wasn't even looking at Brittany. No anger, no scorn, just staring straight ahead, over everyone's heads. In that instant, she looked like the biggest, most important person in the whole airport. "Ms. Eleanor, do you need to sit back down in your chair?" Gary, her secretary, softly asked. Eleanor just shook her head a little. "I think I'll stand for a bit longer," she replied. Her voice was quiet, but it had an unshakable core of steel. How many of us realized in that moment that silence can hit harder than a freight train? Not many, I bet. Just then, we all heard footsteps echoing from the far end of the concourse. A squad of uniformed security guards and airport ops personnel were heading right for our gate. And every single one of them was looking directly at Eleanor. The head of airport operations spoke up, without hesitation, "Chairman, we await your command." That's when Brittany's knees buckled. "Chairman, we await your command." That single sentence completely changed the playing field, shifting the power dynamic in the whole place to a different universe. Brittany couldn't move. She stayed right where she dropped. Someone reached out a hand, but she couldn't even grab it. Eleanor, though, remained perfectly still. The title chairman didn't change her expression at all. She just lowered her eyelids for a quick second, looking off into the distance. Behind her eyes was the past. She saw an old wooden house with a porch and the sound of wind chimes. It was the summer of '97. She was 5 years old and sitting in a stark white hospital room, held by her father. Eleanor might never walk again, the doctor had said. Her mother didn't cry out, just bit her lip and nodded again and again. From that day forward, her world changed. The playground slides, the other kids with their backpacks, it all drifted away. The sound of running feet, the smell of summer sweat, the creak of school uniforms, it was all a world away, like watching a movie through glass. In high school, she didn't have many friends. She got used to people saying, "I don't know how to act around you," or "We don't want to be a bother." But there was one teacher's words she'd never forget, "Eleanor, you belong in the sky." She had no idea what that meant back then. But it was the first time anyone had ever truly encouraged her to go after something. Right after graduation, she applied for a ground crew job at a small regional airline. Of course, people gave her the side eye. Working the airport in a wheelchair? Are you serious? But she just smiled, handing over her application. Her handwriting was perfect. For the first few years, she stuck to the background, coordinating baggage and handling customer complaints. When promotions came up, she turned them down to stay on the floor. She needed to know everything about the airport, why people traveled, the tears of families, the quick goodbyes, the stress of the business travelers, the smiles of the couples. With every single interaction, Eleanor began to understand the true meaning of the sky. Eventually, she was promoted to management and soon ran the entire international division. That's where she first spoke her now famous quote, "We're not selling air travel. We are delivering people's futures." Chairman? The voice of the airport staffer brought her back to the terminal. Yes, she nodded quietly. She turned and went to her wheelchair, settling back into the seat without a backward glance. No sign of limping, no hint of bitterness. She simply returned to the stance she had earned. All flights are grounded until a full safety check is complete. I want crew members reassigned and immediate debriefings to begin. I want a full status report from everyone present here, she commanded. The staff scattered, moving quickly. Brittany just stared, dumbfounded. Why? How did this happen? I thought she was just a disabled person, she wondered. For the first time, a doubt about herself started to bloom in her mind. And in her head, Eleanor spoke to her past self, "See? Old me, you made the right call. You never gave up on the sky." "She's the chairman," someone whispered into the silence. It was a small sound, but it shook the terminal air like a stone dropped in a pond. But deep down, everyone there knew the truth. They had judged a book by its cover. They had unconsciously assumed that someone who couldn't stand couldn't accomplish anything. Brittany was still kneeling on the ground, unable to get up. She didn't even notice her uniform skirt was hiked up a bit. She waited for Eleanor to say something, anything. But Eleanor said nothing more. She just closed her eyes. It wasn't a rejection, it was a peaceful, all-encompassing silence. A silence that was heavier than any word. At the end of the boarding bridge, the flight monitor kept flashing red, Flight 403 cancelled. The general airport noise, the waves of chatter, the sighs of travelers, the clatter of bags, faintly reached our ears. Around Eleanor, the air was a mix of cold scrutiny, confusion, and a new kind of interest. A woman in the crowd raised her phone, red-faced and trembling, to snap a photo of the scene, the silent chairman, and Brittany still kneeling at her feet. "Please put that away," a low voice suddenly said from behind the woman. It was Gary, Eleanor's secretary, his hand resting gently on the woman's shoulder. "Holy cow," I thought, "this is about to get messy." The lady with the phone wasn't letting up. "This isn't slander, it's just documentation," she snapped. Gary, Eleanor's secretary, looked pained. He put his hand on her shoulder and said, "Look, documentation and public shaming are separated by a thread. But either way, I guarantee you she's going to face it head-on." That got the photographer to finally stop recording. Eleanor opened her eyes, and still, she didn't accuse a soul. No anger, no protest, just that heavy, silent gaze. It somehow felt more damning than a public yelling match. "Why aren't you furious?" Brittany's voice shook. "I said those absolutely horrible things. Why won't you even look at me?" Her voice was just this pathetic, shaky plea, only reaching her own ears. The rest of the passengers were starting to get it, too. Eleanor's silence wasn't surrender. It wasn't about revenge or pity, either. It was a calculated, powerful choice, a strength she picked. She chose to prioritize the integrity of the entire American Global Airlines operation over blowing up at one flight attendant. She wasn't just venting her feelings, she was challenging a person's entire character. "Yeah, she's really the chairman," some guy mumbled. Just as Brittany tried to haul herself up, the PA system cut in. "We interrupt this broadcast for a critical announcement. A formal statement will be made concerning inappropriate crew conduct at Gate B7 today. Brittany looked like she'd been hit by a taxi. The staff bolted toward the control center. The public reckoning was about to start, and at the center of it was one woman who wasn't shouting or crying, but was somehow the strongest person in the room. The announcement over the speaker was surprisingly emotional for an airport broadcast. Inappropriate conduct by a crew member was confirmed at Gate B7. We are currently addressing this matter under the full responsibility of American Global Airlines. We ask for your patience and understanding. Eleanor's eyes narrowed slightly when she heard the tone. A split second of total silence fell over the gate, like the quiet before a hurricane. Gary leaned in and whispered something into her ear. She nodded slowly. "Prepare it." Gary turned and rushed off. Then I saw this dude in a suit come running up, totally winded, holding a sealed manila envelope. "Chairman. Your final sign-off." Eleanor took the envelope and, without breaking the seal, handed it straight to Gary. "I've already confirmed the contents. Send it under my name. To every single employee." Her voice was small but rock steady. "You can't be serious." Brittany's voice cracked, cutting through the space. She stumbled toward Eleanor, her face a mask of anger and pure fear. "What are you doing? Sending it to everyone? I told you I'd apologize. You're just going to humiliate me worldwide." This wasn't an apology anymore. It was a panicked scream to save her own skin. "You're using your power to crush me. You're picking on the weak one." The air totally froze. In that instant, Eleanor's body visibly tensed. She gripped the armrests of her wheelchair, knuckles turning white, taking a long, slow breath. After a silence that felt like a lifetime, she finally spoke. "Do I look weak to you?" It was low, quiet, but it hit like a thunderclap. "You thought I was weak because I didn't shout, because I didn't fight, because my rank is higher than yours. But that, Brittany, is a strength I chose." Brittany actually stepped back. "I wasn't silent to protect myself," Eleanor continued. "I was silent to make you realize the danger of someone with your attitude handling the human lives that travel under this sky." The words weren't cold or angry, they were just straight, hard truth. Brittany's lips trembled. "How can I make this right?" The question finally came out, shaking. Eleanor didn't answer. That wasn't her job. The PA system came back on. "We now bring you an emergency statement from the American Global Airlines corporate chairman." The whole airport went dead silent. The emergency notice, sent under the name of Chairman Eleanor Vance, was read out to every employee. It wasn't an apology, it was a declaration: we are a company that moves people. We must deliver the same sky and the same future to every single person, regardless of their status. If we fail in that, we do not deserve to fly. Everyone held their breath. Brittany quietly lowered her eyes. Eleanor hadn't addressed her directly, but the force of the words hit her like a punch to the gut. And Brittany started to cry. Tears streamed down her face and soaked the collar of her uniform. When was the last time she'd cried in front of anyone? It was a mix of shame, regret, and a deep self-hatred for her own ignorance. Eleanor just watched, silent as before. It's easy to yell at someone for messing up, but watching them and letting them face their own truth? That's the hard, heavy choice. "Who is the chairman, anyway?" a passenger whispered. "I honestly thought she was just a customer," another one replied. "A female American CEO in a wheelchair? No way." Just then, a massive monitor in the terminal flashed the American Global Airlines logo, followed by the name, Eleanor Vance, Chairman and Chief Executive Officer. The surrounding passengers gasped and swiveled around. The name of the woman standing right there finally clicked into reality. Eleanor didn't flinch. She just dipped her head slightly and managed the smallest of smiles. "Well, looks like I finally got to be seen as a name, not just a problem," she muttered to herself, too quiet for anyone to hear. But maybe it was an answer to all the pain she'd kept hidden for years. The staff near the gate snapped to attention, lining up in front of her. The young shift supervisor bowed low. "Chairman Vance, we are truly sorry for this incident. We will immediately implement retraining for all employees. Please, give us guidance." "Guidance?" Eleanor tilted her head once. "No. I authorize it. I want to give everyone one more chance to earn their right to work under this sky." Brittany finally looked up. Her eyes were red, but the fear was gone, replaced by a quiet determination. "Let me relearn, too, please," she whispered. "I need to understand the weight of this sky, and how my words can break a person's heart." Eleanor nodded. "You will train under me. You won't return to the gate until then." The silence returned, but this time it wasn't cold. It was a positive quiet, full of the anticipation of change. "Don't forget her name," someone said. "No chance. That's the name the sky just taught us." I looked up, and through the thick terminal ceiling, the small patch of blue sky actually seemed to get a little bigger. Eleanor's eyes were the same color as that sky, but nobody knew the massive effort and pain she carried to keep it that way. Later, I saw her in the little press conference area. Flashbulbs popped, microphones were shoved in her face, but she was calm. "I'm not special," she said. "I just kept searching for my place somewhere in the sky." Her obsession with the sky started young. After she lost the use of her legs, she spent hours watching the clouds, the clothes waving on the line, the planes flying overhead. The roar of the jet engines hit her deep. "That's the sound of going somewhere far away," she thought. That's when the 10-year-old girl decided she had to be a part of that noise. She went to a regular college prep school, checking the campus elevators every morning. She studied accessible design at Georgia Tech and worked odd jobs at the airport. She checked every back door, every service hallway, every ramp, every emergency procedure, the places nobody looked. The real problems are in the places people ignore. That became her motto. When she applied to American Global Airlines, she didn't use the disability hiring program. She applied for the normal competitive track. Her interview answer is still legendary: "I don't want to be a consideration. I want to be a person of responsibility." Nobody could argue with that kind of weight. By her mid-20s, she led the airport accessibility project. By her 30s, she negotiated with multiple international hubs and drove the passenger satisfaction ranking to #1 in the country. Sure, people whispered about the wheelchair CEO candidate behind her back, but she was always cool about it. "Effort isn't for show, it's for compounding," she'd say. It wasn't easy. There was internal pushback. "She doesn't look like a chairman. She'll embarrass us internationally. It's just a PR stunt." She never yelled. She just delivered results. There's one story about her crying late at night in a conference room once. "Sometimes the effort just doesn't pay off, right?" she supposedly muttered, before wiping her eyes and smiling. "But we have to keep going." After that night, she gained a quiet, untouchable steel. Watching her now, knowing all the walls she'd broken down, all the pain she'd taken, and how she still believed in the sky, none of the reporters could think of a question to ask. She closed the conference by saying, "I've climbed countless invisible walls. But I didn't do it alone. The people around me who chose to see me? They were the ones who held me up." That was a message to Brittany, the passengers, and everyone who uses the sky. As the room quieted down, Eleanor looked up at the ceiling. A shadow of a plane passed over the glass. Watching it go, she whispered in her head, "I'm not done yet. Next time, I'll fly even higher." I saw her later in an employee briefing room. Eleanor Vance, still in her wheelchair, sat center stage. In front of her were about 22 people, ground staff, mechanics, pilots, HR, and training reps, people who normally never worked the same shift. After a long silence, Eleanor started. "I've used the phrase protecting the sky a lot. But it's not just about technology or rules. Her voice was soft, but everyone was sitting up straight, listening. The sky carries people's lives. Departures, reunions, goodbyes, homecomings, hope, and worry. We carry all of it. A young staffer clenched his fist. He finally understood what he'd missed. Years ago, Eleanor had completely rewritten the in-flight emergency manual. Why? Because it didn't account for passengers in wheelchairs. Are we not a part of in the event of an emergency? She'd asked. She was the first one in the office and the last one to leave, running simulations. She flew as a passenger herself, checking aisle widths and emergency exit locations from the view of a wheelchair. Sometimes, she'd crawl on the floor just to practice an emergency exit from a different perspective. That, she told the staff, is what responsibility looks like. That last bit of her story just silenced the entire room. We were all staring at our shoes. Brittany was there, too, sitting slouched in a chair at the back, out of uniform, wearing street clothes. Nobody was giving her the evil eye anymore. They were all too busy having a private moment. What would I have done? Have I ever looked down on a person? Am I actually qualified to be part of this operation? This wasn't just about Brittany, it was a mirror for every single one of us. Look, everyone gets emotional. We're human, Eleanor said. But a professional is someone who takes responsibility for their words until the end. She looked straight at Brittany for the first time that day. Brittany slowly nodded. Her eyes held no excuses, no anger, just rock-solid purpose. I can't let it end like this. I want to take responsibility for everything I said and fly again. I have to be a part of this sky. Eleanor paused for a beat and gave a slow, gentle smile. Then you'll undergo a full 3-month retraining program under the head of education. If, after that, you can become the kind of person who can speak for this sky, I'll welcome your return. A quiet ripple of applause went through the room. It wasn't loud, but it was acceptance. Nobody's perfect. But facing your mistake and taking responsibility? That's the real backbone of anyone who works here. The price of going viral. After the meeting, Eleanor and Gary walked down the empty corridor. The overhead lights cast long, stark shadows of her wheelchair. You think they got the message? Gary asked nervously. Eleanor thought about it. We'll keep going until they do. That's what it means to keep flying. She had this quiet pride about her, like she was the most natural thing in the world, focused on a point miles past the horizon. But there was a new shadow creeping up on her. In the airport cafe, some kids were huddled around a phone. Did you see this? It's huge overseas. The screen showed that morning's confrontation, the exact moment Eleanor was insulted, the moment she slowly stood up, and the explosive reveal, I am the chairman of American Global Airlines. The clip had 20 million views in just 12 hours. The comments were a mess. She's a modern-day warrior. So much dignity. That's true leadership. But the negativity was there, too. Naming herself chairman was a cheap shot. She's using her disability as a weapon. This is just a victim business stunt. Eleanor's desk was buried in notifications, emergency prep reports from corporate communications, legal inquiries about her image rights, and a list of non-stop phone calls from Gary. She quietly closed her laptop. So, the wind has finally started to blow, she whispered to no one. At the same time, Brittany was shaking on her couch at home, scrolling through her phone. Her name and some of her personal accounts were being dug up. This is the flight attendant. She needs to be fired. A person like this shouldn't be allowed to fly. Her eyes burned, and tears started falling again. Nobody online knew her past, her stress, her own loneliness. She knew what she said was wrong, but the way she was being sliced up by strangers was terrifying. The silence of the real world felt colder than any online shout. In a corporate meeting room, Eleanor was already holding a damage control meeting. Chairman, shouldn't we request they take the video down? The communications guy asked. Eleanor shook her head. You can delete the video, but you can't delete the memory. What matters now is what we say next. The silence in the room was heavy with the weight of her decision. The confession and the consequence. The next day, Eleanor released a formal video statement. It wasn't full of excuses. She calmly addressed the event. When we don't know who the person in front of us is, it's easy to feel anxious, misjudge, and hurt them. But I truly believe that if people are just given the chance to learn, they can change. We want to be an airline that delivers belief through the sky. Comments poured in globally. I cried. This is real leadership. Thank you. But the negative wave brought up old dirt, her quick promotions, her special treatment, her company finances. An anonymous account posted, "No one knows the true impact Eleanor Vance's past choices had on this airline." This story isn't over. Late that night, Eleanor was alone, staring out at the runway lights. The silence felt painful. The anonymous comment, "Eleanor Vance's past choices warped the sky," wasn't just an insult. It was a jab at a specific decision she'd never told anyone about, a mistake that had felt like a splinter in her soul for years. The next morning, she went to the training center to see Brittany and the other retraining staff. The room froze. "Chairman," Brittany stammered. Eleanor was calm. "I'm not here to lecture. I have no answers. But I want you to think about this. Who do you want to carry on this sky?" She moved slowly, looking at each face. The blind person? The non-English speaker? The mother with a crying baby? The rude businessman? The person in a wheelchair, like me? Brittany slowly raised her hand. Right now, I'd say anyone. But that day, I was stressed. I was behind. I didn't see a person, I saw a burden. No one laughed. Several people nodded. "I've thought the same thing," someone confessed. "That lack of capacity is what clouds the sky," Eleanor said. "But now that you know, you can change." As she turned to leave, Brittany called out, "Chairman, one more question. Why do you believe in us so much? Even when people betray the organization?" Eleanor paused. "Because I have to. If I don't, this sky is just a method of transportation. But if you choose to believe in the people you carry, then it becomes the future." That night, another anonymous post hit the internet. It outlined a major error in Eleanor's past that caused an airport crisis and involved a lost life. The sealed-off past was finally breaking open. The true cost of responsibility. The next day, the entire executive board met. Eleanor stood before them, setting down a file. "Regarding the post this morning, there are some misunderstandings, but the core issue is my fault." The room buzzed. 7 years ago, I rushed the implementation of a new operating system at a regional airport. We lacked manual backup, which led to a passenger in a wheelchair being misdirected, resulting in a temporary airport shutdown and an injury. The incident was blamed on the ground crew, but every decision was mine. Another executive started to speak, but Eleanor cut him off. "I trusted too much. There's a difference between trusting people and delegating responsibility. I assumed everything would be fine without my personal sign-off, and that endangered our sky. Now, the cost of that choice has come back." Her honesty was breathtaking. That afternoon, she spoke to the trainees. "I am someone who, in the past, clouded the sky. That's why I want you to know this. Only those who have made mistakes can truly speak about responsibility." Brittany's throat tightened. She stood up and bowed deeply. "Chairman, I've always wanted to ask you. When you gave me retraining, did you actually forgive me?" Eleanor quietly shook her head. "Forgiveness is about my feelings. Whether you can start over is up to you." Tears finally overwhelmed Brittany. "I'm so sorry. I've been so wrapped up in my own status that I forgot how to apologize to another human being." But now, I truly mean this, I apologize. Eleanor reached out and gently touched Brittany's hand. Thank you. That word just made the sky a little bit cleaner. That night, an unmarked envelope arrived for Eleanor. Inside was a single photograph from 7 years ago, a young boy in a wheelchair being moved by medics after the accident. Scrawled on the back, "It's not over." The image was a quiet indictment. It was the responsibility she'd left behind, the approval she'd signed to rush the system, believing she shouldn't slow down reform. She had promised to carry people's futures, but she had sacrificed one. A new captain for the sky. Eleanor decided to live stream a broadcast to all employees. Today, I have an apology and a message. 7 years ago, a system I rushed implementation on injured a passenger. The fault was mine. She bowed deeply. I've spent years rationalizing that event, burying it. But I realize now that as someone who speaks for the sky, I cannot look away from someone else's pain. The stream ended. Staff around the world were moved. Brittany wrote a note, "Trust isn't about being perfect, it starts with offering up your weaknesses." It was posted anonymously on the staff board and spread like wildfire. Later, Eleanor and Gary were on the observation deck. "What is the sky to you now, Chairman?" Gary asked. Eleanor looked up. "It's the place that doesn't tolerate mistakes, but still gives people the strength to stand up again. It's where the future flies." But to protect that future, she had one last decision to make. In the corporate tower, the executive board and media gathered. Eleanor was about to make a major announcement. She appeared right on time. "Thank you for coming. I am not here to make an apology or a defense. I am here to announce a decision for the future." The room went silent. "Today, I am resigning as the chairman and CEO of American Global Airlines." The reporters erupted. "Why now? I have driven years of reform. We've had successes and failures. But now, this organization is mature enough to move not just because I was here, but because it's ready to move without me." She pulled up a projection. It showed a new plan for an integrated, fully accessible air travel network. The plan covered disability, age, language, and economic background. And the project lead, the new chairman-elect? Brittany Dawson. The room swayed. Brittany, who had gone through retraining, was officially named the head of the major new accessibility project. She made a mistake. But the commitment and desire to learn she showed afterward went beyond my expectations. A person is truly tested not when they are right, but when they are wrong. Eleanor finished, "The sky isn't just for the chosen few. The sky is for starting over. I want you all to create a sky that carries everyone's future, not anyone's past. Farewell, Captain." In the waiting room, Brittany quietly met Eleanor. "Was I really the right choice?" she asked. "No. You were the only choice. Only someone who has clouded the sky knows its true clarity. That's a strength no one can teach you." Brittany quietly took Eleanor's hand. "Thank you. I will protect this sky in my own way." Eleanor smiled. "I'll be watching from a little further away. But as long as we both belong to the sky, we'll meet again." That night, Eleanor completed her final task. She removed her uniform, took off her ID, and held a single boarding pass. The destination was blank. It simply read, "Open seat. Destination, future." Days later, the airport atmosphere was noticeably warmer. The staff were kinder, more confident. The change was rooted in Eleanor's confession and Brittany's presence. Now wearing a simple pantsuit, Chairman-elect Dawson was touring the floor. She wasn't wearing an ID, she was just one of the staff. She saw an elderly woman in a wheelchair at the check-in desk and rushed over. "May I help you?" Her voice was gentle, not rushed. The woman smiled. "Yes, thank you." "Say, aren't you the one from the gate that day?" Brittany realized this was the same woman who had stood silently by Eleanor during the initial confrontation. "I'm so sorry I couldn't help you then," the older woman whispered, bowing her head. Brittany realized that everyone carries the weight of a past they couldn't change. "No, thank you. Your silence is what made me who I am now." That evening, Eleanor met Brittany on the observation deck. "I knew you'd show up," Brittany laughed. "Forgiving is much harder than apologizing," Eleanor said. "But as people of the sky, every time we board someone, we have to accept a part of their past." Brittany nodded. "So I forgive my past self, others, and I'll widen the sky for everyone else's future." As they said goodbye, Brittany gave Eleanor a journal, her notes from the retraining. The last line read, "Forgiveness isn't forgetting. It's choosing to move forward while holding the memory." Eleanor held the notebook to her chest. "Thank you. I was only chairman because people like you were there." The next morning, Eleanor stood alone on the observation deck. The sky was a vast, cloudless blue. In her hand was the boarding pass, name Eleanor Vance. Seat, open. Destination, future. A young staffer stopped and nodded nervously. "Ex-Chairman Vance, I watched your company-wide stream. I was truly inspired." Eleanor smiled. "Thank you. I think not being chairman makes me a little nicer." "We'll miss you," the staffer said. "But we know it's our turn to protect it now." When Eleanor reached her gate, an unexpected line of staff, including Brittany, was waiting. "Thank you, Eleanor. Thank you for showing us the sky again," Brittany said, her voice now steady. "But please come back. As a passenger." Eleanor nodded. "Of course. I look forward to seeing what this sky looks like when I return as just a traveler." She rolled down the jet bridge. The rising sun caught the plane's exterior, a gentle light illuminating the path ahead. Inside, she buckled her seatbelt and closed her eyes. The sound of the wind, the heavy silence, the tears, the apology, the resolution, she tucked it all away. "We are preparing for takeoff." She opened her eyes. The blue sky outside the window wrapped around everything. Every pain, every doubt, every tear, every moment of pride, up here, it all turned into wind. And one question remained: who do you want to carry on this sky? With that question held close, the plane began its long, silent taxi toward the future.